Hello and welcome. I am Gimba Umar. Tonight, issue of power generation for Africa reverberates at the Global Infrastructure Forum in the United States. Fear grips Benue communities as another herdsman attack claims 18 lives. Oyo State government approves death penalty for capital offences and kidnapping. And over 200 people died following a powerful earthquake in the Equatorian cities along Southern American west coast. We begin tonight with the problem of generating electricity in Africa, which reverberated at the first Global Infrastructure Forum held in Washington, D.C., United States of America. The president of the African Development Bank, Akiwumi Adesina, who championed the call for Light Up Africa, made a submission that lack of power has brought untold hardship and infrastructural decay to the African country. For the World Bank president, Kim Jong-Kim, nothing short of developing other countries alongside advanced nations will orchestrate the much-needed global parity. Our foreign affairs correspondent, Amarachi Ubani, reports.
In a hall packed full are finance ministers from all over the world, policymakers, diplomats and fellow journalists, as head of multilateral development banks discuss their role in development of economies through major bankable projects.
Across the country,
among the panelists of presidents of NDBs is the president of the African Development Bank, Mr. Akiwumi Adesina, who has prioritized 5 points of infrastructure, but says one is most pertinent for Africa.
When you take a look at the infrastructure deficit on the continent today, it's actually a little bit more than $50 billion, right? You're talking about maybe $60–70 billion gap in terms of infrastructure. And if we don't fix that gap, essentially we're going to shave off at least 5% of the GDP growth in Africa, which we can't afford. Now, but when we talk about infrastructure, for me, the most important one of the high fives that you say is actually electricity. It's mind-boggling for me that 138 years after the discovery of electricity, of the light bulb by Thomas Edison, that we can't light up a light bulb in Africa. Today, Africa has over 650 million people that don't have access to electricity. And that is why at the African Development Bank, we have prioritized the Light Up and Power Africa. I told Jim Kim, I said, if there's anything that both of us have to really agree on and work on in Africa, is to light up and power Africa, and of course to feed Africa, which also requires a lot of things on energy.
While each region has its own challenges, explained by the panelists, World Bank President Kim Jong-Kim emphasizes the need to share experiences in policy reforms and advises investment in multilateral development banks.
There's some great examples of how tough, politically difficult reforms lead to possibilities for, say, energy infrastructure that are really quite striking. Mexico is a great example. You know, they took very tough reforms in terms of private participation in the energy sector. And then a few weeks ago, literally, they had one of the lowest prices for solar that we've ever seen, 4.5 cents a kilowatt hour. And the direct connection to the policy reform is very clear. We need to take that case and show it to everybody.
Just holding for TV.
G24 countries are faced with major infrastructure issues in the 21st century.
2, 3.
And hopefully,
Thank you very much.
the discussions will pave way for solutions.
Here at the IMF Center in Washington, D.C., Amarachi Ubani, Channels Television News.
China appears to be the new bride in Nigeria's investments drive. $6 billion. That is what the presidency claims that Muhammadu Buhari's trip to the Asian country has attracted. The president's media advisor believes that the country hasn't seen anything yet and more investments will flow in within the next few days. Mr. Femi Adesina, who made these comments on our program Sunday Politics, now speaks.
It is not like going to the market and then you come back home at the end of the day and they say, how much did you sell today? It is not usually in that perspective because investments take time to yield. But this trip to China has been particularly productive because it's a continuation of what had been started by a previous administration. Like it is said, government is a continuum. And some of the things started by the Goodluck Jonathan administration have now been consummated by this administration through this trip. For instance, we know that China is so well endowed in the areas of infrastructure, while Nigeria today has plenty infrastructure deficit. So we have a lot to gain in the area of power, in the area of agric, in the area of housing, railway, transportation, generally housing, and so many other areas. And that is what has been explored during this last trip.
Well, let's get another perspective from Dr. Gani Lawal, who is a former director in Nigeria's Foreign Affairs Ministry. Dr. Lawal, I want to thank you so much indeed for coming on the news at 10. The figure we just heard, $6 billion investment coming into Nigeria and more to come still. How do you suppose this inflow will have a direct impact on the Nigerian economy?
Thank you for having me. 6 billion is a lot of money, and when invested in Nigeria, it's going to have a lot of impact on the Nigeria economy in the area of power, housing, transportation, and things like that. So there is a lot of benefit, when such investment comes into Nigerian economy.
So this trip by Mr. President to the Asian country has indeed generated a lot of controversy. You know about that also. Some people saying that nothing tangible has resulted from it. What are your views? Should Nigerians expect to see or to know that this investment is being translated into measurable realities? Can this happen?
Yeah, it can. For instance, if it is properly managed. In terms of investment goes to where there's a lot of profit, but this profit motivation is for the private sector. But for the larger society, provision of infrastructure, but in terms of meeting societal needs. But more importantly is the knowledge that can be garnered from this investment, and this is where the government needs to do a lot of work by making sure that when these investments are operational in Nigeria, there is the window for Nigerian citizens, engineers, to be able to gain some knowledge from the way these investments are being implemented.
When you talk about knowledge, what kind of knowledge do you
Now,
mean?
the type of knowledge I'm talking about, for instance, I'll give you an example. If in the power sector, the transportation sector, the housing sector, some new technologies are being brought in, the Nigerian government can have a university, a center of learning, to anchor such implementation of programs by way of student attachment. The students of engineering in most of our tertiary institutions can have their attachment within the implementation of these investment programs and gain knowledge. So what it means is that we can also replicate this knowledge. We can also repair and maintain these infrastructures when they are already put in place by our own indigenous people. This is what I mean by knowledge. It's very, very important. It actually transcends any government, because you cannot take it away from us anymore. But if you just narrow it to just investment profit, that benefits only the investors. What benefits the society more is the ability to continue to maintain this infrastructure when the investors must have either handed it over to the government, or when they need to replicate it elsewhere in the country.
What do you suppose then are the long-term gains for Nigeria?
Yeah, that is exactly what I have just said now. The long-term gain is this knowledge base that is going to be garnered from the implementation of these infrastructural investments.
So after this, Mr. President's visits abroad, what can be done to rejig the Nigerian economy?
Well, to regenerate the Nigerian economy, the federal government of Nigeria needs to go outside the box by seeking information from experts in various areas. You cannot stay in the box and be doing the same thing to get a different solution. The government needs to go outside the box. There are a lot of brains in this country that the government can tap to. And if government tap into it, it will benefit the government, it will benefit the society.
I want to thank you so much indeed for speaking to us. Sunday News at 10, Dr. Lowell, a former director, Nigeria's Foreign Affairs. Many thanks indeed for your time and your thoughts. In part 2, after the break, Oyo State government approves death penalty for kidnapping. Stay with us.